Hi, everybody. Good to be with you today. I prepared a special presentation. We're going to keep the dream alive. We're going to continue to preserve an important part of our national history. I've got 3 cases that I want to go over this evening. And I've talked about these cases before, but I've got some new information that I thought was interesting and important. So I felt it verified and it justified the fact that we should go back and revisit these cases one more time here with some new information. So our first case is that fantastic Project Blue Book case involving Eddie Laxson. So I've got our first slide up here. I'm going to set this up for everybody. Now, this is March 23rd, 1966, Temple, Oklahoma. It's about 5:05 in the morning. And Eddie Laxson, who is an electronics instructor at Sheppard Air Force Base, he's driving down the road, and you can kind of see in Tom Bogan's illustration here, the sun is just coming up over the horizon. He's on his commute to work, and it's still a little bit dark out. And all of a sudden, his headlights hit something perpendicular to the road, completely blocking his road. So he hits the brakes, and he gets out of his vehicle, and he's looking at what can only be described as a bowling pin that fell down 90 degrees horizontal. It's also described as a fish-like object or a perch-like object. Now, I want to go with some of the dimensions here. So this craft was 75 feet in length, kind of a highly polished mirror reflective exterior, about 8 to 10 feet high. And I'm going to start on the right-hand side. It had a bubble transparent canopy that looked like it came off a B-26 from World War II. Now, there were 2 beaming spotlights shining directly below, 2 beaming spotlights shining ahead. The whole thing was about 3 feet off the pavement with these pogo landing gear legs, something that looked like a lunar lander. After that section on the right-hand side, he saw an air stair door that was open, and then there was a man wearing 2-piece green military fatigues. He had a baseball cap with the bill turned up, and he was shining a flashlight down at the bottom of the air stair doors, like something was wrong or something mechanical had to be looked at. And this was a man. This was not an alien. This is not an extraterrestrial. This was a man, okay? Now, directly above and a little bit aft of the opening of the air stair door was a stinger or spire that swept back and went back toward the aft end of the vehicle that terminated in about a 6-inch diameter sphere. Below that and slightly further back on the right-hand side was a 3.5-foot diameter porthole window that was divided into 4 equal pie segments. Then, in black letters written vertically, TL4768 written on the side of the craft. 2 more beaming spotlights shining backwards, and then what looked like flight controls that were way too small to be aerodynamically effective were seen at the very back of this thing. Now, Eddie Laxson started to go back toward the trunk of the vehicle, opened up the trunk. He was getting out a camera, and then the quote-unquote crew member, because I don't think this was the pilot. I think the pilot was still inside the craft. This was like a maintenance personnel. He saw he was being watched by Eddie Laxson, so he scurried up these stairs, and then the air stair door closed, and this is where it gets interesting. There was a high-pitched drilling noise. The whole craft hovers off the ground about 50 feet, stays there for about 30 seconds, and then departs like a spark on a grinding wheel. And remember, this is back in 1966. This is 3 years before Neil Armstrong landed at Tranquility Base on April 20th, 1969. So what I'm saying here is we already had the technology to go exo-atmospheric using no liquid rockets. So let's continue to the next slide here. Now, this is his original drawing, and you can see these dimensions here: 75 feet in length, 8 feet tall, brilliant white lights, horizontal stabilizer he has, 3 feet off the ground, flat plates for these pogo landing gear legs. It says Laxson's version of the strange craft. He says object blocked highway. You've got the light shining down, and then you've got the air stair door, and then X marks the spot where this maintenance person was seen by Eddie Laxson. So I'm going to go back one more time here. Take a look at these dimensions. You've got 8 feet high. You've got 75 feet in length. Just by looking at the dimensions alone, you can see that this drawing is grossly out of scale. Now, he did a great job, and he was probably confined by an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. But in order to get this thing into scale, It has to be stretched out a lot longer. So I spent a day kind of making some corrections here. And this is what I came up with kind of a final refined drawing here. Now, the gentleman that was shining the flashlight near the bottom of the air stair door, he said it had what looked like naval chevrons on them, like ranking insignias on his upper shoulder area. Again, we've got TL4768 written on the side of the craft. Now, what I believe was that spire with the ball at the end, I believe that to be an electrical discharge sphere for dissipating electrical charges. I've talked about this in other presentations. So I'm going to go over just some of the bullet items here. And this is not my report. This is the official Project Blue Book report. I think this is the best Project Blue Book case. So we'll hit some of the bullet items here. Length, 75 feet. Height, 8 feet. Width, 12 feet. Seen by a 56-year-old electrical engineer on his way to Shepherd Air Force Base, west of Highway 70. Time of sighting, 5:05 a.m. Primary eyewitness, Eddie Laxson, stopped 300 feet from the craft and described it as looking like a wingless aircraft or perch-shaped fish vehicle. Okay, so that's some of these bullet items here. Let's continue on here. The object lifted off with a hissing or drilling sound. How many times have we heard about these high-pitched drilling noises that take place just before these craft rise off the ground? The craft made no sonic boom as it departed. Okay, let's continue on here. Here is the map that you're going to find when you go to the National Archives and pull up the file on this thing. You can see Temple, Oklahoma, Highway 65, and then Highway 70. If you head westbound, approximately half a mile from the intersection, there's the drawing of the object. And you can see it's parked perpendicular to his direction of travel here. And then I think it's just a great drawing, a hand drawing. So then I went to Google Maps and came up with this. And I wanted to see exactly what it would look like if we could get, I would say, 50 feet from where this thing actually came down that Eddie Laxson saw back in 1966. And this is the spot right here. So if we could go back in time, get back to this March 22nd, 1966 time frame and be right here at the correct time, we would be seeing this craft. I'd love to see it. I want to know where it actually went, where it's being stored now. Here is the official Project Blue Book index card. So this gives you the date, the location. I won't read this whole thing, but it says, observer spotted object parked on highway in front of his car. Observer stopped car and got out to investigate, but as he got close to the object, a man apparently entered the object and immediately the object began to rise from the ground. Now, again, they don't say alien. They don't say extraterrestrial or gray. They say a man. So even Project Blue Book is calling this a human craft here. Lawton Morning Press, March 24th, 1966. Temple man meets UFO on highway. Wichita Falls Times, March 23rd, 1966. Strange flying object sighted. So here's all the newspaper clippings that get into all the details of the case here. Here's some of the bullet items that I thought were important that we go over. William Eddie Laxson was a pilot since 1941, had 8,000 hours of flight time and taught a course in aircraft recognition. You could not ask for a better witness. 8,000 hours pilot in command. This is a perfect witness. Object rose from the ground with the sound of a high-speed electric drill, hissing geese, or of a welding torch. So many other cases have this same high-frequency drilling noise before they depart. Multiple cases. Number 3, the craft caused the hair on his arms and head to stand up. So here's another one of these cases where the localized area was permeated with the static electrical field. We've heard that multiple times. 4, the man standing next to the craft was wearing GI fatigues and had chevrons on his uniform. 5, Laxson stated that he would recognize the man if he saw him in Oklahoma City tomorrow. That's how close Eddie Laxson got to this man here. I thought that was interesting. Now, I want to take you to the Houston Post, April 10th, 1966. Laxson, who is familiar with aircraft, said he had no thoughts about the craft being from outer space or even from another country. Quote, "It's an American piece of machinery," he said, it's nothing foreign. So here you've got an expert, CFI, 8 hours flight time, aircraft recognition expert, electronics instructor at Shepherd Air Force Base, and he's convinced that it's one of ours, not an alien spacecraft. So we already had the technology by 1966 to go exoatmospheric, and I wouldn't doubt it if this thing could go all the way to the lunar surface. It's very possible without no liquid rockets, no solid rockets. All that is the way of the dodo bird. Let's continue on here. Daily Oklahoman, March 1st, 1971. Object sighting now rude. And here you see our man of the hour up on the right here. And what this article talks about is how he regretted even mentioning this case because he got calls at 3 in the morning. He got calls from London, all around the world. He was woken up and he regretted even talking about this. He was ridiculed. So what this does, in point of fact, it actually lends credibility to the case. And you can see the artist's impression of the sighting itself. So I want to drill down to just one part of this article that I thought was interesting here. Here's what Eddie Laxson said. What I saw was definitely not from space. The man was wearing fatigues and had a cap with the bill broken up like Air Force mechanics wear, Laxson said. It had common English letters on it. So again, according to Eddie Laxson, this is not an extraterrestrial spacecraft. This is one of ours. So I want to take you to our first world exclusive today. This has never been seen. So hopefully it's a world exclusive. And I want to thank Monty Earwood for helping me with this. And what he did is he saw my research on this. And he decided, you know what, Mike, I am going to commission a friend of mine in the Philippines to do a very nice model of this from the Philippines. It's 3D printed model, and I want to show that to you right now. So here we go. Here's our model here. We've got the transparent bubble canopy. We've got the light shining forward. We've got the air stair door. We've got the starboard porthole window divided into 4 equal pie segments. We've got the stinger going back with the ball at the end. We've got the beaming spotlight shining backwards. And then I put TL4768 on the side of the craft. Let me give you another picture here. This is a direct side view. I've got the air stair doors. And then the gentleman who printed this out integrated the landing gear legs that can be taken off for transport. So guy did a great job. I want to give him credit. And I want to thank Monty for helping with this. This is a 3/4 aft view looking on the right side of the craft. And you can kind of see these flight controls and then the TL4768 written on the side of the craft. Let's do another one here. Here is the porthole window. This is starboard window divided into 4 equal pie segments. And then you can see where this crew member was standing next to the air stair door. This is a blow up of where he was standing and shining that flashlight. I mean, I'd love to be here and see this in real time when it actually took place back in 1966. And then we'll do one more blow up here. Now, I've got a cash prize, not much, but I will mention this right now. I am going to issue a cash prize of $100 for anyone that has documented paperwork evidence that can be backed up. We're talking about documented evidence here. What does TL4768 mean? I have not heard anyone solve this mystery. Is it a Atomic Energy Commission logo or insignia or serial number? Is it from Sandia National Laboratories? Is it from Los Alamos? What is this? Is this a nuclear type registration number? We just don't know. So I'm going to offer a $100 cash prize for anyone that has documented proof of what this means that was written on Eddie Laxson's craft here. Here's the back section here. I'm questioning whether these are flight controls at all. I think these could also be electrical discharge probes or spheres or something to dissipate this electrical charge. All right, now I want to take you to David Marler's National UFO Historical Record Center in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. This is something that just opened up recently last year. And what David has done is nothing short of miraculous. He has gotten the blessing of the Rio Rancho, New Mexico School District, and they donated 2 fairly large buildings to his collection, and I want to show you boots on the ground research of what's in the collection here. So he has the QFOS files, Jalen and Hynek files, NICAP, APRO files, audio tapes, videotapes, cassette tapes, film reels, UFO collections from all around the world, historical UFO artifacts, UFO related artwork. He now has the largest collection of UFO material in the United States. And he's getting collections constantly on a weekly basis from people who donate all around the world. David's getting collection, and it's all being put into one place. So this is something that people that are interested in this phenomenon definitely should check out, National UFO Historical Record Center. So I want to give you a tour. When you pull up here, this is what you're going to see. Logos on the right-hand side. This is the first building that was donated to the collection. And then we'll do another one here. Here is the entrance to the building number 1, where they have kind of a museum there. And then in the back, there's more of a historical archives and storage. Here is the entrance to the main archives. And I'm going to take you inside here. And what you're looking at is the inside. As soon as you walk in, front door, you have to sign in. And these are the APRO files that have been missing for 40 years. These files have not been seen by human eyes for 40 years. And back in December, I spent 2 days scanning just one file cabinet. I will return here. This is going to be a long project here. Go through every file case by case and pull out the absolute very best cases. And I want to thank David Marler for giving me the opportunity to do this. This is going to be a long project. So what you're looking at here are the APRO files. Let's go on here. Here are the QFOS files that used to be stored at 2457 West Peterson Avenue near downtown Chicago. They also have NICAP files in here as well. So David has just done a tremendous job getting all this information together. Here is my scanning station. You can see my laptop. I've got my high capacity document scanner, and it's literally this whole thing about going through each manila folder, picking out these great cases, scanning in the ones that have a drawing, illustration, sketch, 3-page report, and a flight path. If it had that criteria, I definitely want to copy it. Let's continue on here. Artwork is another big part of this. So there's artwork from all around the world. He's got original pieces that have to be seen. And then this is the back of the main archives, where they have magazines, periodicals, newsletters, and then a large collection of books. So this is a first-rate university-level research and archive center and library. I mean, just a fantastic job here. Here's some of the books in David's collection, which are now part of this National UFO Historical Record Center. So let's see if we can go on to the second world exclusive here. Now, I want to talk about the January 1st, 1970 Canada case involving the nurse Doreen Kendall, and this is at the hospital in Canada. So this actually took place on the 3rd floor. What you see here on the left is our primary eyewitness. And I want to go to the second world exclusive now. This stuff has not been seen for 40 years, and I've got some new information as well. So bottom line, to set this up, the nurse is going through and doing her rounds, checking her patients, and she notices that one of her patients was getting very restless, and she thought it might be too hot in there. So she went over to the window, opened up the curtains, and was beginning to get ready to let some air in there. And as soon as she opened up these curtains, she looks out and she sees this 50-foot diameter dish-shaped craft, had a bubble transparent canopy. There was a dome on the bottom of it. It was tilted in her direction, about 40 feet away and 60 feet off the ground. And she said that there were two what looked like humanoid or human beings. They were wearing a one-piece tight-fitting dark flight suit that went all the way up and covered their faces. The only thing that was exposed was their wrists. So she did see that. I'm going to go to the next slide here. This gives you a little bit more of an idea. Now, to set this up further, the two men, she said, had very good physiques. This is what she said in the report. They were standing in back of what looked like a chrome-colored, highly polished instrument panel inset with circular colored instruments, buttons and switches, and then there were two stools there as well. I'm going to go over to the next slide here. Here's the technical layout drawing that shows you the dimensions. So it's 3rd floor in the hospital. It's 60 feet off the ground, 40 feet away from her, and then tilted down. This is about a 25, 30-degree angle toward her. And she said that it had a ring of bracelet-colored lights around the outer circumference of the craft itself. Now, the two humanoid-looking beings, one was further back, the other was closer toward the primary eyewitness. Now, he was being completely engrossed at looking at this instrument panel. He didn't even know that Doreen Kendall was watching all of this. The one on the far side was looking away from the primary eyewitness. Now, he turned around, locked eyes with Doreen Kendall, noticed that he was being watched, and then something bizarre happened. Absolutely bizarre. Let me go to the next slide here. Here is Doreen Kendall's letter here. And let me just read what she says. The inside as tipped toward me and looking into same. The instrument panel was larger than shown, as the first man was at the controls, consisted of large and small circular brilliant lit up. And you can see here drawing here with the stools and then the two men and the instrument panel. The write-up in the enclosed is correct as to what I saw and gave this to the reporter. And this is signed by Doreen Kendall. So this is a historic document dated February 18th, 1970. So let's get back to the case here. So she looks out this window. She sees the two men. When the one on the far side turns and locks eyes with Doreen Kendall, noticing that he's being watched, he taps the back of the guy that's looking at the instrument panel. And then this guy reaches down, he pulls this lever, and he starts moving this lever back and forth. And then the whole craft starts rotating counterclockwise and flies away. So now we're talking about something mechanical here. So it's screaming a man-made technology. And this illustration has not been seen for at least 40 years. This has been completely put away in the archives. So I think this is the first time this has ever really gotten to see the light of day here. Here's a little bit of a blow up that gives you a better representation. Now, they were wearing one-piece tight-fitting black flight suits that went all the way covering their face. This is identical to another case that I talked about in Wisconsin, where they were wearing hoodies with the face covering. So this is completely unknown. Let's continue on here. So here's Rudy Gardea's drawing. We sat down and did this. And so he's got this, the two stools were there. He's got the lever there. We've got the instrument panel with all the buttons and switches and dials. So I want to give credit to Rudy for doing a great job on this drawing to keep this case alive. Now, do we really think that this nurse is lying to us? Why would she lie? There were other witnesses that saw it as well. So this is screaming a man-made technology. Let's continue on here. Here's my full color rendering I did 20 years ago, just to give an idea of what this may have looked like back on January 1st, 1970. All right, here's the newspaper clipping. Times Colonist, January 5th, 1970. Craft hovers 50 feet from hospital. Human-like pair in saucer. So if you want to do some additional digging, here's the newspaper clipping, and it gives you all of the intricate details about this case. Now, next case, USS FDR, November 1958, Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, and Chester Grzinski. He's our primary eyewitness. Now, I've talked about this case before, but I've got one more piece of information that I wanted to highlight that I felt justified going over this case one more time. So just to set this up, here's the MUFON report and his sketch here. And again, this is off Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, 1958, the aircraft carrier USS FDR. Around I'd say about 9:30 p.m. at night, there is all this commotion below decks. There's screaming and swearing and people rushing up the ladders to get to the flight deck. And when they got there, there were 25 naval personnel standing on the flight deck. None of the aircraft were on the flight deck. And they saw this yellow colored light approaching the aircraft carrier. And then as it got closer, this was not some kind of a yellow colored light. This was a 200-foot long cigar-shaped craft that was emitting heat off the side of the craft that they could feel on their faces. And so what you see on this drawing here by Chester Grzinski is the heat emanating off the craft. So it is a CE1 and it's a CE2 because it had physical effects. Now, within these rectangle windows, he said there was what like humanoid beings walking back and forth, and he could look inside these windows. Let me continue on here. Here's a little bit of a blow up of his drawing, and you can see on the bottom section here, one of these beings raised his hand above his head and was waving to the naval personnel below here. And it says, can see them inside looking at us, moving around. Looks like heat waves. This one looked out close up, arm up. This one walking away. So I thought this is interesting. Let's continue on here. So here's our full color rendering of what this case may have looked like back in 1958 timeframe. This is by Tom Bogan. So I want to give good credit to my good friend Tom Bogan, and we'll do a blow up to get a little bit closer here. And this is what perhaps was seen with one of these beings walking through these rectangular windows, raising his hand and waving to the personnel down below. So let me go to our third world exclusive here. So I've shown you the sketches, but I always thought, what happened to the very original sketch? And here's where the beauty of David Marler's National UFO Historical Record Center came in, because Chester Grzinski wrote to APRO and included an original drawing. And this is it right here. You can see that this is done in blue ink. So this is the original. This is a high 600 DPI scan of the original. So let's go here. Dear sir, me and about 25 other people seen this craft, 1958 or 1959. This is dated January 16th, 1978. I think we were off Florida somewhere, shakedown cruise, no aircraft aboard at the time. Square lighted windows, can see them moving about inside. And so he says, me and 25 people. And this is USS FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, CVA 42. It turned red-orange, then shot out of sight. We had a lot of Navy brass come aboard after that with the Chief of Naval Operations. The Navy does not say anything about it. I sent a letter to NICAP of Kensington, Maryland, and to the National Archives and Record Services, Washington, D.C., to see if that the UFO report has been declassified. After a period of time, I went AWOL from the Roosevelt. I did not return to the same ship for duty. I was discharged December 1960, general discharge from active duty. Thank you for any information you can help me. So here's Chester Grzinski contacting APRO years ago now. He's asking for more information on a report that he sent to the National Archives. So this adds to the credibility of Chester Grzinski's sighting. And this is what I wanted to highlight to you this evening. Now, before we wrap up, let's do a really quick check-in here. Let's see here. Ben Abram, Roger Murray, hello. Let's see here. I missed the beginning. Even high-ranking military personnel are clueless about our own USAP craft. This is by King James. The question is, why was the spaceship flying outside the hospital window? That's a very good question. This thing has the capability to go anywhere it wanted to. Let's see here. Hello, the moons of Jupiter, amazing. That guy, Roger. Brendan Harding, it's man-made, all right? Absolutely is. So thank you for everyone that joined us today. Again, I will continue to do these reports. We want to preserve an important part of our national history, and I want to thank everyone for joining me today. So please like, share, and subscribe.